welcome back to the Two Thrones. Good news is that we're almost done, and, well, bit good and bit bad news. This is the last major part where, well, not much happens. Mostly gameplay stuff.
It's, if I remember correctly, Theo, this is the end of this specific trilogy? Or,
Yes,
okay.
yes. The Forgotten Sands, like I mentioned, function as an interquel between 1 and 2, which doesn't really add that much. It just tries to justify a bit why the prince becomes super angsty at the beginning of Warrior Within, but it's a bit flimsy, and it gets retconned just like everything else by the end of 2. So, and we don't know what happened, because of that retcon.
What was the game after this again?
There was the reboot, the Players of Version 2008 reboot, but it was universally disliked. So Ubisoft kind of went to the repairs and made Forgotten Sands in 2010, using the Assassin's Creed 2 engine to do it, which was a logical thought to do it. But after that, lower volume duels. But after that, not much has happened. Like I mentioned, also there were a couple of handled games. There were the different versions of Forgotten Sands, but also a sequel to the 2008 reboot that still went absolutely nowhere. But
why, yes, Tio. I also like my Okami DS ripoffs. Like, seriously, it's like they weren't even trying to hide it. Really, the only reason Capcom didn't sue is because I was at the point where they were starting to care less about franchises of theirs that didn't involve zombies or demons.
Maybe. Anyway, this is also the last place where you can get one of the fountains that can... Yeah, watch out. Where you can get one of the upgrades. This is actually my fault. What I'm supposed to do is to launch myself into the ravine, like that. There you go.
Admittedly, it's not exactly too clear with the camera angle there.
True.
Tio bangs his sword on the wall in frustration.
Okay. Oh, we're supposed to go over there.
Yeah. Again, thanks. Even though we removed the fixed camera, it's always good to studying your surroundings and seeing what the ledges you can get. And I realized that's exactly where I came from. Yay. Yeah, I just didn't cut away because I managed to get back relatively quick. But still, like I said, the removal of the fixed camera is well, not removal, but condensing of fixed camera is the biggest, feature that was removed that was useful to me, because interchanging between the mobile one and the fixed one helped better understanding where you were supposed to go and everything. Instead, when it's more situational, it doesn't help as much as it used to. Here we go.
I have to wonder.
Yes.
I mean, we do complain about how Prince of Persia had to die for Assassin's Creed, but I do have to wonder, was there a case where the creator ever said that they were just done with Prince of Persia? And
no.
That's why
for the specific series of the Sands, yes. But the creator always said that he always had ideas that he could implement in some kind of fashion. So it's not
so I take it he wasn't too keen about the Assassin's Creed takeover then.
No, remember, Assassin's Creed was supposed to be just a spin-off of Prince of Persia at first, before it became its own thing.
So what does the creator had to say about said takeover?
Well, obviously he didn't like it, but he still kept his position in Ubisoft. I don't remember if he worked on specific titles. I think so. I'm just gonna check in the meantime.
Hopefully he's not kept in the same basement that poor Ansel got killed in.
Michel Ancel.
Like, oh boy.
I think the issue is that despite being mechanically sound, these games are not exactly the most memorable of games. They seem like storytelling, for example, like they're laughably horrible at worst, Warrior Within, and mediocre at best, if you ask me.
I'd say that the story here is fine and... Okay, to be fair, I'd say that the story here is actually pretty good. The problem is mainly the pacing. Like, I mean, overall, it gets the story beats down fine enough when it gets to them. Some do feel a bit more some do feel a bit more drawn out than others. And admittedly, yeah, the gameplay is not the best. It does feel like it could use some better refining. Although, weirdly enough, they got a better idea with stories in Assassin's Creed, so I wonder what was the issue with these games.
Remember, Joe, at some point, one of the games that later became another Assassin's Creed spin-off was supposed to be a new Prince of Persia game. The one that became that trilogy of mini episodes of Assassin's Creed. I forgot what specific name they used. Is the one that has one episode in China, one episode in India, and one episode in Russia.
Oh yeah, the thing that turned into like those handheld... Were those on the DS? Or
No.
PSP?
The PS Vita game was Liberation, which was
No,
about...
wait. Liberation came out on the PSP.
No. PSP had a spin-off of Assassin's Creed 1 starring Altair. I actually played that one.
I'm pretty sure it did come out on that. Let me check.
No, Liberation was a Vita exclusive for a while, and then Ubisoft
Yeah,
ported
here it is. Assassin's Creed Liberation for PSP.
Weird. But anyway,
to be fair, it did run alongside Assassin's Creed 3, which was, in that time.
Was it one of those games that released on the later years of the Vita or something? Sorry, the PSP or something?
Yeah, because the PS Vita was already present, so...
I think it is also available on the PS Vita, and now both Assassin's Creed 3 and Liberation are coming to the Switch. No stupid streaming Wi-Fi thing required.
Well, at least if there's a PSP version, that makes it easier to record, I guess. So, thanks, I guess, Ubisoft.
But at this point, it's better just the HD one.
Yeah, on the Switch.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Oh, it's also on the PS4 version, for example. Oh, remastered 3.
Is it on the PS4?
Eh?
I forget if they have reported Liberation to the PS4.
Ow.
Babes, lower your volume.
He sounds fine to me.
It sounds fine to me as well.
No, I wasn't about the video. I was on about you ping-ponging off those...
Yeah. That's why I got that too as well.
Wait. Oh, did you actually...
No. Oh, okay. No.
I thought Dweebs thought the volume was too loud again.
Oh.
It's okay. Simple mistake. Yeah,
There you go. There you go. Like I said, this is the last major gauntlet where you can go to get the life upgrade.
It seems like I get the feeling that the wall climbing of Uncharted took a lot of inspiration from these games in particular, because I see a lot of similarities.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It's a bit more on
kind of
free
a pioneer
those games,
of
though.
parkour.
So yeah,
Well, maybe it's just because I'm not playing it, but just looking at it, it does feel similar. Just less refined, obviously, but it does feel like a beta version of it.
Yeah, maybe Joe is also right. This also because also this was basically a pioneer. Yes.
For a second there, I thought you killed Kylene.
Remember, she's already dead at this point.
Oh yeah.
She died at the beginning.
She died for our sins.
Who's that other one then?
Farah. She's if you don't remember, the Vizer captured there, and she's taking her prisoner on top of a tower of Babylonia. Whee!
Honestly, all of these chicks are so memorable and just feel like trophies for the prince to save.
Not so much.
Farah at least defended herself better.
Kylena technically defended herself in the second game.
But Kylena was literally a trophy. Like the ending of World Within is still so atrocious in that regard.
Is there anything about that game that's not atrocious?
Oh,
I guess it's a good comedy.
It depends. Well, the glitches will be
stopped
fine.
being funny after 10 minutes.
If taken out of context, the Godsmack song for the credits is actually fine on its own. It's just that it has to be associated with that.
Yeah. I'll just say this right now: Devil May Cry did it better.
Well, obviously, but Devil May Cry is entirely built around having that kind of atmosphere. Prince of Persia, no, it was clearly a major clash in tone.
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit, I kind of do feel a bit sorry for the Prince of Persia series, though I do have to wonder if, well, has Ubisoft ever given a reason of their own why they discontinued that series?
Majorly because since they are releasing so many Assassin's Creed titles, they think that feels that kind of genre enough.
The irony, seeing as how later them cranking out Assassin's Creed games would be kind of the bane of their existence.
And they have been recently making Assassin's Creed games that don't feel quite like Assassin's Creed games, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Almost like they don't want to make Assassin's Creed games
That's the weird
anymore.
thing about Odyssey. It's a good RPG, Western RPG, but it's barely an Assassin's Creed game anymore at this point.
Okay, folks, yes. Gimmicks are definitely always a thing for every game. Like, just because we attach a negative stigma to them doesn't mean they're always a bad thing. Gimmicks are pretty much anything that's new for a game. However, there's a difference between adding on gimmicks or just changing up the gameplay to the point where it doesn't feel like it. Like, let's do a comparison. Devil May Cry 5. Yeah, different protagonist. Well, not really. Dante's still there, but you get what I mean. Nero is up front and center. Yet the gameplay still feels like Devil May Cry. You've got your quick action gunplay, your, let's call them not reaction commands here
Is
and
the game
there.
even out yet at the time of this recording?
Not
No,
to,
we've seen
almost.
gameplay footage.
not,
We've seen
it also has to
gameplay
do.
footage to judge.
It also has to do with gameplay. In the new gameplay gimmicks that you insert should have some kind of logical sense to them. That should just be there for the sake of being there. Like, for example, one of the big reasons why people like Johnny and me tend to dislike Tails in Sonic Adventure 2 is because there was no real reason for Tails to be stuck in a mech. Because we know that he's capable of, handling himself without a mech. The game never really offers a good reason for why he's using that gameplay style. It just comes
Especially because in some cutscene, if I recall, he even is with outside of his mech.
Whereas with something like the reason Kunito has kingdom building is because it makes sense with the story and the setting and the overall kind of thing that it's trying to do. There's a contextual sense that explains it. Whereas Tales in the Mech or something like I know it's an easy target, but Big's Fishing feels like some.
Okay. To be fair, context is that Big is looking for his frog, and of course his frog is in the water.
The problem is that compared to the rest of the cast and the Sonic franchise in general, it is still out of place.
Oh, I get that, but we were talking mainly about story context.
Sure. It like there has to be some. It's not even a matter of story context, Joe. It needs to make some amount of sense within the game itself. It doesn't even have to be story context. Like it has
to be fun.
Well, that goes without saying, Dwebs. But
okay. I think the best thing to describe is Big's campaign is pretty much, it feels like a set of what could have been mainly more of a mini game than as, a main campaign.
Yeah, like a very optional stuff. Especially because, as Johnny said, Big's impact in the story is almost non-existent. Aside from Froggy being tied to one of the Chaos Emeralds,
and Chaos's Tail. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I mean, and okay, Tails being in a mech, I have an easier time buying that. Well, first off, of course, it's a throwback to Gamma, who people actually did like gameplay-wise. And Tails being a brainy guy who uses his mech, well, he's been doing that even in stuff like Tails Adventure or whatnot.
I understand what you mean.
Did he really screw those cuckoos up? I mean, I'm not saying that, it's completely justified. I'm just saying it's not really that out of place compared to, say, Prince of Persia 2, where, yes, they technically do give a context to it, but Prince of Persia 2, Warrior Within was just... Well, it's the kind where you have to really do a lot of
mention, on a mechanical point of view, purely gameplay, or realistically gameplay, the combat is technically better, but the problems are the fact that the combat was never the focus, and is also butchered down by the terrible presentation and audio design.
Which brings us back to why Assassin's Creed doesn't really feel like Assassin's Creed that much. Well, kill people, but... I mean, by the time of Odyssey, you're killing them almost as broadly as you do it in, God of War, which isn't a bad thing on paper.
But Jova, you can climb on top of statues' penises,
Yes, it's very nice to know that history recognizes that people had stuff to compensate for. We all knew about that in Egypt. Thank you very much. The point is I mean, not only do the Assassin's Creed games not even really play like assassins, okay, you can really much count the number of murders you do as an assassin on one hand at this point. Not only is the gameplay a lot more broad here and there, but But story context as well. Is dealing with Abstergo even a thing anymore? I don't know.
Yes, but the problem is that it's. I honestly don't know where the story is going around this time of Assassin's Creed. There are a couple. I mean, the modern day story. There are so many micro plot threads that either gets dropped or are going nowhere. Like, for example, Minerva trying to find a way to enter the real world. It's weird, believe me.
Like I said
Yeah,
before,
let me put it like this.
sorry.
Ever since Assassin's Creed 3 ended Desmond's trilogy, they did the smart thing and focused on having more like a nameless avatar be the person who activates the Animus. And now, ever since, even after Assassin's Creed 4...
I mean, Assassin's Creed 4 even had a tongue-in-cheek self-deprecation by having Abstergo becoming a surrogate of Ubisoft itself, like a video game-making company. There was a meta factor into it, but still, after a while, it was a joke that ran its course.
It's kind of like how with Resident Evil 3, after that, Umbrella were pretty much done. Sure, you still heard about them, but supplementary material shows that Umbrella were pretty much done after that, as much as they tried to cover stuff up.
But Jova, don't you know, the president will understand, don't you know?
Goodness gracious.
Let's not even get to the fact that a plot point in Assassin's Creed 4, or it's Unity Forgotten, I think it's 4, doesn't get resolved in that game and instead gets resolved in Watch Dogs. Why not?
But Jova, of course the Umbrella Corps was done. Did you watch SGB's playthrough of LA Noire? The hot dog stands that were run by the Umbrella Corporation were destroyed. Therefore, they went out of business.
Yeah, they've been recently. It's the Rimlight Corporation that's been picking up their slack.
They've been retconned, and it wasn't even anything to do with Capcom.
Lovely.
Like I said before, the Warrior Within's problem that I've seen, it really feels a lot like the same problem I had when I first tried Jack 2 back in the day. It was just because it was just such a fucking what the fuck is this?
It was such a recurring problem with games.
And an enemy just killed itself.
Huh.
Sorry,
Guess
go
it
ahead.
couldn't take it anymore. It really was a recurring issue around the time when the PS3 and Xbox 360 came to town. I mean, okay, it was also a thing on the PS2 since that's technically when Warrior Within and Jack and Dexter 2 came about.
When
The
did
thing is,
Warrior
like,
Within come out
for some
again?
reason, a lot of companies...
I think it's 2005.
I'll check.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was,
so-
well, it was. Oh yeah, the 360 was already out by that
Prince of
point.
Persia,
Never mind then.
Warrior Within release dates.
I just don't get it. What was with this obsession of trying to technically mature stuff? Like, okay, I get it. Your audience grows up, but...
2004, end of 2004. There you go.
It was the hot trend at the time, I guess.
Yeah,
Look at this.
that too.
What a good
but,
example of
if I
maturing
had
of your audience.
if I had to hazard a guess, it was as a mentality that similar to what Sony had at the beginning of a PS3 cycle.
Yeah.
The fact that we are having better graphical resolution, better engines, and everything. So let's up the quote-unquote maturity, and I use that term very loosely, of our games as a result.
We already had mature games like the Resident Evil series to do
Not even that.
anyway.
Even the PS1 had stuff like siphon filter, so I
Yeah.
really don't see the issue.
That's one thing that I do appreciate about the first Uncharted. Despite being a realistic human game, it still kept a sense of humor about itself. It didn't try overtly hard to be realistic and dark and all that shit. But go ahead.
And then came that one Uncharted game that tried to do that, but at least it didn't even do that badly. The point is, like,
Wait,
what
which
was
one?
with this? Forget that.
You mean Golden Abyss? I haven't heard that much of it.
I haven't played Golden Abyss, so I wouldn't know. Like the other four don't do that. Is Golden Abyss?
I don't know. Radiant Dawn is not
Do you
doesn't
think- do you
stand
think
there.
Lost Legacy?
Isn't that the same developer who made the God of War PSP games?
Yes, but keep in mind they also did titles like Secret Agent Clank, so it's not like we're super edgy by nature. So.
I haven't seen much of Golden Abyss, but it didn't seem like it was dark and serious and shit. It seemed like it was basically the same tone as the others. So which one do you mean, Jova?
I really can't remember the name, but that may be Golden Abyss. But okay, I'll use a better example. even Devil May Cry, a series that was already rated maturely, when the reboot came about, that reboot was so try-hard with stuff to the point where, look at us, we're edgy enough to have a guy shoot a pregnant woman through the belly.
It had the sad subtext of the director of Ninja Theory, Tamim, a guy called Tamim, wanting intentionally to show how different the game could have been, but sadly in doing so had the idea of trying to be provocative during the marketing campaign.
That's the best
That's basically one of the problems. If Tamim just stick to the fact that said, well guys, it's a reboot, to see for yourself how it is. No. There's an infamous PowerPoint presentation around the first reveal of a reboot, where Tamim shows a couple of slides that says this is not how you do Dante and Nero, for extension of Virgil, and one of them is a photo of Brokeback Mountain. Yes.
Allow me to correct you, Theo, by the way.
Subtlety.
I just checked. It was actually not Ready at Dawn that made Golden Abyss. It was Ben's studio. So.
I thought Ready at Dawn did
in their previous incarnation as Idotech made Bobsy 3D.
Yeah. And now they're making Days Gone.
They were the guys who made the Siphon Filter, okay.
Yeah.
Look at them now, they're making Days Gone past.
I'm actually curious, what is Ready at Dawn making right now? Let me see.
Right now, I think they went multiplat. I forgot what we're doing now.
But, again, the weird thing about the year is like, well, something's wrong when it felt like even mature games were trying to be more quote-unquote mature.
Right, we're doing VR games, Pedro. That's what you need to know.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, we're actually closer to finally reaching the Vizer, so...
Continue from here when you return.
Yes, Kairina.
Hopefully you will be more awake.
Don't worry, honestly, for this particular piece, where the prince doesn't talk anymore, similar to how he behaved in War Within. In this case, I can kind of see why they decided this last stretch to be like this, because he had an emotional turmoil against the Dark Prince itself, at which the end he said basically just shut up. He saw Farah being taken away by the Vizier, and now he's basically just doing the final determination, climbing. So I can see why he would not be that chatty.
I guess the one thing that's missing is maybe some music to go with. Like, I know normally the game has been silent, but dude, it's the penultimate stage. Like, okay, let's do a comparison. Like, in Shovel Knight, the stage before you face the Order with no quarter, it's the first part of Enchantment. Yeah, of Enchantress Tower. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with some
on the
silent
second part of Bad Tower, it's like, well, the music there is a very fine-tuned remix of his main theme. Obviously, he doesn't really say much during the level, but you really feel like it's building up to it. Like, I feel like this part could have definitely used it like that. Like, I get the
even something more subtle, not necessarily, over the top, just some ambiental stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with some silent parts. The problem is that this game goes for a long time without music, and it kind of creates a dead atmosphere.
I mean, I will take this over the aggressive metal of Warrior Within.
Yeah, but obviously, but this is the other extreme. That's the problem.
And there's the problem that the game, like I mentioned, had several rewrites and everything. So I'm not sure if this was a result of it or not. But anyway, see you for the next time, where we finally cap off the original trilogy. Well, Deep Sand trilogy.
All right, see you.
See you later.